Not even 4 weeks ago, I created this very simple Iwagumi layout in a bowl. I added in a nutrient-rich substrate layer and topped it all off with some fresh aqua soil, placed in my rocks, I planted the bowl, and I opted to go with the dry start method. Unfortunately though, 27 days later and the bowl went from this all the way to this. Almost all of the plants melted away. Some of the plants were even covered in mold, and the rest of the plants were all eaten by tiny little maggots. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, and well, this is the state of the bowl roughly 27 days later. What actually went wrong? What happened? Why did it happen? And what am I going to do next? Now, I'm going to try and keep everything as brief as possible so that I don't bore all of you and so that we can get to what I'm going to do next, well, very, very quickly. Yet, let's start off with the mistakes that I made. Now, the first mistakes that I actually made were when I actually ordered the plants. I ordered the plants roughly 2 months ahead of time before I even started off this project. One of the plants actually came in a normal pot with some rock wool, which I kept in my plant grower tank, and the other species of plant came in an in vitro pot. The plant that I kept in the plant grower tank, which was the Eliocharis, it did absolutely fine, though the pearl weed that I had in the in vitro pot, that unfortunately just outgrew the pot completely, and the bottom half of the pearl weed in the in vitro pot actually started turning yellow and white, being deprived of light for such a long period of time since the plant was completely grown to the surface of the lid. However, when it came to planting the bowl, I thought to myself that that was most probably going to not be a big of a problem. So my guess is that when I planted the pearl weed, all of the bits of the plant that were already deprived of light that I actually pushed into the soil, well, they were deprived of light even more, shoved into the soil and, well, put into a very humid environment, and that just caused a lot of decay and even more plants just slowly but surely melting away. And decaying plants and melting plants is just an invitation to mold, unfortunately. But from doing my research on the dry start method, this was just a normal occurrence. However, one little patch of mold started to grow, and that spread quite rapidly and, well, took over quite a few plants. There are a lot of methods that are suggested on the internet on how to combat mold, what to do against it, though unfortunately the one method that I really wanted to use was to fill up the bowl with water was unfortunately not an option. Other methods like spraying down the mold with a diluted hydrochloric acid solution or salt water or even vinegar water could have also been used, but I wasn't really too sure if that was going to cause more problems long term. And well, hydrochloric acid, I don't really know where to go get any. So the one option that I really wanted to do was to actually fill up the bowl with water in hopes that, well, the mold would suffocate underneath the water. That's where we come to the second mistake that I unfortunately made. Now, in front of me is the light stand that I actually wanted to use to illuminate and display the bowl. One thing that I never took into consideration, unfortunately, was that the bowl didn't really fit onto this base plate of this LED light stand. With a bowl on this LED light stand, the problem is that I can't move the bowl far enough back because of the gooseneck of this light stand. So unfortunately, the foot of the bowl basically extends quite a bit over the base plate. I didn't want to fill the bowl up with water on this light stand here and have anything bad happen. Another issue that I also had with this light stand was the light itself. Now, I just didn't believe that this light here was going to be strong enough to grow the plants to the extent that I would have liked it to. Plus that the bowl just didn't really fit onto the base of this light stand, I decided to build my own DIY light stand specifically for the bowl, plus to use a floodlight to achieve the desired lighting that I wanted from the very beginning. But anyways, if you guys want to check out how I built this DIY light stand, I'll put a tag up here if you guys want to go check the video out. I also go into a little bit more of a detail on why, well, I built my own DIY light stand. Go watch the video, pretty cool. I really much enjoyed building this light stand. But let's dive into mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is more of a mixed one. About 2 weeks after the initial setup, the plants actually started to, well, recover, and the mold disappeared. Well, the plants stopped melting and everything kind of looked like it was slowly but surely balancing itself out. In that entire time, I was slowly but surely getting all of the materials together to build the DIY light stand so that I could actually fill it up with water to, well, stop the whole process of the dry start. Now, the third mistake is basically about the Eleucharis. When I planted the tank and added the Eleucharis right at the very back, I sort of bunched the leaves all up just to make planting easier, and unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the leaves have just turned brown because they were also just deprived of light. A lot of them are also slowly but surely melting away, even though there is still quite a bit of greenery in there, and I'm hoping that once the Eleucharis is underwater and all of the leaves are going to, well, spread open again, and, well, whatever was dying off might melt away completely, and hopefully all the healthy green leaves are just going to stay, and over time the Eleucharis is just going to come back again. However, for the pearlweed, that is obviously not going to happen. They're not going to come back, and that's where we come to the tiny little worms. Now, as I mentioned, everything seemed to be going well after the initial, well, I would say panic stage, and I slowly got my hopes up that everything was going to be fine. One afternoon when I came back from work, I sat down at my desk and I had a quick glance into the bowl and I just saw something wiggling. Obviously, I immediately took a closer inspection and I saw a tiny little, well, worm or maggot. The more I looked around, the more I saw. And at some point I realized that the entire scape was basically crawling with tiny little maggots. Now, these tiny little maggots, they come from a tiny little fly that many of you who have a lot of houseplants might actually know of, and it's the dark-winged fungus gnat. Now, during winter time, unfortunately, all the windows are always closed. I have a lot of houseplants, and these flies, they lay their eggs in potting soil, especially for potted plants. And if the conditions are just right, the eggs will hatch, little larvae will come out, and they will feed off any decaying matter, which there was a lot of in the bowl here. And once they've actually eaten away anything that is decaying, they will also start eating the live and healthy plant. So it didn't take long for these tiny larvae to basically just devour themselves through the plants of the bowl, and, well, this is now all that I'm left with. In roughly a week, everything was eaten away, and eventually I had an entire bowl just filled with tiny little flies flying around everywhere. Now, I've dealt with all of the tiny little flies and I've looked through the entire bowl and I don't see any larvae around anywhere. So I hope that they're all gone. But I do see a tiny little fly flying around their apartment from time to time. I do hope that I will eventually get all of them. But now we come to, well, what am I going to be doing next? Obviously, I'm going to replant the entire scape and then actually fill the bowl up immediately with water, since I have a proper stand for the bowl to actually stand on, and then just go through the normal wet cycle of doing the daily water change and just let the plants grow in that way. However, I did order the plants in a timely manner this time. I have the Eleucharis in my plant grower tank, and I have a brand new in vitro pot of pearlweed that has not been overgrown. So let me get those, let me clean the plants all up, then we can actually replant the bowl again and fill it up with some water, and then hopefully all the larvae and the flies will no longer exist. the bowl is all planted and it is looking, well, way better than it was before. It is green again. There is greenery all around. And, well, let's hope that the plants all survive this time. I do expect some plants to melt away once I actually fill up the bowl with water, especially the Eleocharis or Tricularis that is all brown in the back. I'm pretty sure that's all going to melt away. Between all of the brown leaves, there are still some green leaves. So I do hope that, well, a lot of it is going to still just recover and regrow. Obviously, I did plant a lot of new Eleocharis in there, though let's fill up the bowl with water. This way we are definitely going to make sure that any worms that are still there or any flies that are still flying around inside the bowl, they are going to die off and obviously can't reach the plant anymore. Hopefully from there on onwards, everything is just going to, well, stay the way that it is, but we'll have to see and just let time do its thing. Okay, I am extremely happy the way that it looks. I did not expect that once I actually filled the bowl up with water that the rocks would just blow up in proportion. And the Eleocharis in the back, now that it is underwater, it is actually now all, well, fanned out properly and it looks quite amazing. It just gives it that nice green curtain. The rocks obviously just look, well, 5 times bigger than what they actually are. I completely forgot that, well, a bowl will obviously just magnify everything. I'm actually quite sad now that I didn't do this directly from the beginning. I could have, well, obviously saved quite a few plants. I could have saved quite a bit of money, though I'm extremely happy with the way that it turned out. The DIY light stand also just looks quite amazing, especially with the halo of light that it produces around the bowl. Also did not expect that. Hopefully the plants are all going to settle in fine now. Hopefully they don't melt away, fingers crossed. I'm still going to add a few snails into the bowl just so that they can eat any decaying matter, especially the Eleocharis in the back that's all brown. That is definitely going to all melt away. I will be doing a daily 50% water change for at least a week or 2. Just keep an eye out on the bowl, and once the plants have somewhat settled in, then we can get the first inhabitants for the bowl. But yeah, that's still going to take a little bit of time. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment down below. I would really like to hear your guys' thoughts on, well, the failure and the restart of the bowl, or rather said the take 2. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell not to miss out on future projects and also not to miss out on the next update on the bowl. I'm going to move the bowl to its final position for now, and yeah, I will say I'll catch you guys in the next one.